evenings for up to 4 hours and most weekends. My memory is probably 6 hours every day. We actually like tournaments because sometimes they ended up being a shorter day for us. So if you think about that, our sexual knowledge was probably that of a very immature teenager. And I feel the need to say that because people talk about 16-year-olds as if we were mature enough to know what was going on. And I hope you heard me say when I started that I lost my virginity. And all the abusers that I have come forward with, most recently 6 of us, we all lost our virginity to this person. So right away, I want you to understand that we were not makeup wearing promiscuous 16-year-olds. And guess what? Even if we were, it wasn't okay. The experience taught me that dirty secret sex was love. I knew no different. It became my belief. I was to tell no one. I was to follow blindly, and I learned quickly when it felt completely wrong and hurt to try to get out of the situation, whatever it was, without angering him. That was hard and lonely. I was very clear that my future hung in the balance of me understanding this fully. I didn't talk about it. I didn't share with anyone. I was so afraid of losing my future in volleyball, all of my dreams and goals that were in his hands, and I understood completely the importance of keeping this secret. I also pretended to be someone else to fit in so many areas of my life. In the gym, as a teammate, in my peer group, trying to be a normal teenager, as a daughter, as a sister, as someone who had to endure acts of a very sexual nature with no knowledge of how to do that. It's like I was a chameleon. It was such a confusing time in so many arenas for me. I have one example. Being with my girlfriends when I was 16. Being with the friends and they're sharing first kisses and going to second base and me sitting there and listening and wanting so badly to be a part of the topic. I wanted to fit in so badly. I wanted to share something similar. I was acutely aware I could never share what I was being forced to do sexually. I would be ostracized, I'd be ashamed. I learned really early I was different from other girls, and I still feel that way to this day. Many of you probably know my story. Many of you probably know the details of my story. 3 of us have been sharing this story for a long time. Most recently, 6 of us have shared the same story, the same abuser. We decided we had to share details to show truth, to help people put aside the wrong perception of abuse. Put our truth out there as our abuser has been putting lies out there. We came forward 22 years ago, and when you're a victim, the first thing people want to do is protect you, and that's great. The problem is when you protect the victim and you let them hide in their shame and be anonymous, you also hide the story, and that's not okay. So the 3 of us decided that there's no more hiding the story. The story and the details need to come out with the truth. And that caused an uproar for a while because people had to battle and understand in their brain what they've heard as truth for a long time isn't what we were saying. So we had to find some immense patience with people and keep telling the truth. Truth is truth. It's not hard to tell. Actually, it's hard to tell when the truth involves shame, but I mean, we don't have to think about our stories. Our stories are our stories. There's been times I wanted to give up, and you realize you can't. Again, it's not my shame. We did nothing wrong. It's his shame. That's hard to reconcile. You realize the fight's not just about our justice, it's about present and future athletes. I don't think I could bear it if I did stop doing what I'm doing and one little girl came forward and told me about her abuse, and I had given up and I had stopped trying to find a solution and continue the path that we all want to go down, keeping our kids safe. So we don't give up. We keep sharing our truth, the details. We keep finding patience for others, and we help the situation. Remember, silence is a predator's best friend. So I'm not going to be silent. I don't think there's an end in sight to stop sharing my story. It's just the path that's necessary. What I've learned is the degree that sex abuse victims can heal is comparable to the degree that we're believed. Okay? The first step in my healing to feel believed and find my bravery, I had to take baby steps with trusted people. It was terrifying to share my story. The first person I told shut me down. It stopped me for a long time. It stopped me for a long time. So remember when people say, why didn't you come forward? Why didn't you tell? Well, maybe I did. And maybe the shutdown was too much, and I had to stop telling it for a long time. I found trusted, compassionate people who heard me and said, it's okay, you're okay, and they believed me. In the beginning, I would tell my story, and I would get a physical stomach ache all the time. Every time I told it, my stomach would hurt. I have a twitch. I know you probably have all seen it, or you're gonna now start looking, but it'll present itself, I'm sure, when I'm nervous. I have had that a long time. Things have gotten better. I feel less of a physical reaction telling my story, but that came from telling my story a lot. Just remember, if healing begins with telling, then we have to make telling safe. We have to. That's going to be my mantra. I've been believed, I've been validated, I've had years of professional help. I can handle the few negative people in the lives for my abuser now. But what I want to talk about with you all today, and I hope you take this out to wherever you go and share it, because these are the things that need to be fixed. Comments like, why didn't you come forward earlier? A victim can only come forward when they're ready. No one can put a time frame on it. You just can't. There's no statistic that I can say 2.5 years after you'll be ready. You just don't know. For me, the first time I told, I came forward at 18 years old, and again at 29. I first confronted my abuser when I was 18. I became aware that he had gone on to abuse a younger player. I was at college, and I was told this by players who confided in me who were still in the program. When I went back home, I had a sickening awareness that I was naive enough to believe that I was the chosen one. I was the only one that had to endure this. I was the one who suffered through and got away, that he wasn't going to do it anymore. When he went on to abuse other younger girls, it was so upsetting. So I had to confront him, and I did. And of course, I told him he was sick and he needed help. The awareness to me was so shocking, but at least I knew that there was some kind of mental illness going on and he needed help. Of course, I was told to get the hell out, and I did. I didn't have any power to stop him, and I knew it. I tried. The first person I told when I was in college was my college coach. I told him what happened to me, and it was now happening to another girl. I was told that I was just jealous and get out. Okay? They were friends and they were colleagues. I then shut up for a long time, and I went on with my life. I watched him groom others. I watched signs of him abusing others. I was powerless. One victim, Julie, came forward to me years later. Interestingly, she was one I'd watched being groomed, and she asked me if I'd tell my story. She asked Christine and I if we would tell our story. She asked others too. Some were too afraid. Some were being threatened for their silence. So remember, there's all reasons people stay quiet. Christine and I talked about it, and we were scared, but we thought we can't leave her out there alone. We know the truth. I watched her get groomed. I knew Christine's story. I was one of the first. I knew the others after me. I watched it. So we came forward. We were scared. Julie put her name out. I was victim 1. Christine was victim 2. That's all I could bear at the time. I was 29. Julie was 24 and Christine was 26. And the statute of limitations in Illinois were already long past. So that's not that old. That's very short for an abuse victim to come forward. Very rarely do you come forward that early. But we did it for Julie. Julie came forward because she brought it up in therapy and the therapist was going to report. So that's how it even started. Other helpful words, unhelpful words, he was never criminally charged. This one probably bothers me the most. This does not mean he didn't sexually abuse us. Please understand the statutes were very short. They did not coincide with how victims rectify what happened and can feel safe sharing. These statutes have been changed since, and they're much longer now. So I'm going to try to explain to you with what makes sense in my head and my thoughts. I think about, what if murder had a statute of limitations, and the day after the statutes expired, all the proof came out that somebody murdered? Does that mean that they're not a murderer because the statute's passed? Of course not. Of course not. Just because our abuser was not criminally charged does not mean he did not sexually abuse us as minors, period. That phrase is not helpful. I hope we can stop saying it. I hear it in written, I hear it in spoken, I hear the question asked. It really doesn't make sense. Deciding for yourself the accused abuser is a good guy and wouldn't have done these awful acts is negligent. I've heard phrases like, he's a great coach, a great father, a great person, as if one thing negates the other. Being a successful coach does not mean he couldn't sexually abuse a player. One does not negate the other. I hear that all the time, but he's a great coach. Sorry, great coaches don't abuse their players. Okay, but one does not negate the other. If you look at Jerry Sandusky, almost 100,000 boys went through the Second Mile program annually for about 15 years. 10 came forward and testified. I'm sure thousands of boys benefited from the program. It doesn't erase what he did to at least 10. I'm sure there are thousands that will say he's a great guy, a good coach, a fun coach. Doesn't mean he didn't abuse 10. Should we shame those 10 boys? Abusers don't abuse everyone. They only abuse a chosen few. Continuing to use the phrase, he was not convicted of a crime, exasperates the problem, it hurts the solution, and it hurts the victims. Believe us or not, I'm sure the majority of us want present and future athletes to be safe from abuse. Shaming and denial only helps the epidemic grow. Victims have to find courage to speak. Silence is an abuser's best friend, and shaming victims, denying the victim's story, only continues the problem. We all want things in place like safe sport, procedures to report in clubs and organizations to keep the kids safe. We need big consequences to not only the abuser, but the people who support the abuser or hide the abuse. That's the only way. We're never gonna stop abuse, but we're gonna limit abuse. Abuse will always be here. We have to find a way to lessen it and support kids that are abused. I had the opportunity to testify in Springfield, Illinois, in front of a Senate task force looking at abuse. I told them that I felt first reporters were incredibly important. I believe we should have a financial consequence for not reporting. It's necessary. You report or you will be fined. Money matters to most people. This takes, in my opinion, friendships, personal agendas, and not wanting to get involved out of the equation. The concept was really well received, and I'm so happy I was invited to speak, and I think I'm optimistic something will good come from it. Regardless, it's time we all got on board. Julie, Christine, myself, and the others, we know what happened to us. We've told what's happened to us over and over and over. We don't sit in our worlds, as Ray said, as victims. We sit in our worlds like survivors who have a responsibility to help rectify a problem. I ask you today to look closely at your individual moral compass and decide, what can you do to help this problem? I'm going to assume that, well, I hope some of you are college coaches, and I hope some of the college coaches can watch this later. Because when I was asked to come talk here, I was hoping I'd have a chance to make a difference to college coaches and tell them how important their role could be. Because as I told you earlier, the first person I told was my college coach. I trusted a person that I was supposed to trust. He did not validate me. He did not have the education or tools to handle it correctly. Perhaps, if it handled today, he would have done things differently. I like to think so. I didn't have safe sport, a place to go to safely share. So I want you all to please hear me now. The first person a victim could tell of abuse Could be a coach, could be a college coach. You finally get away from the abuse and you think you're safe like I did. And I got there and I felt that I was away, I was safe, and I could share. It's not up to you to decide if that abuser did it, didn't do it, could possibly do it. He's a good guy, there's no way, he's my friend. That the victim could be lying, she's not very trustworthy, she's pretty young, maybe she's wrong. That's not up to you to decide. You need to pass off the information to a professional. We heard all about Safe Sport. That would be one of the first places to reach out. Do not decide for yourself. Your agenda may alter you from doing the right thing, and you may not even realize it. College coaches recruit. They make their living from 18 to 22-year-old kids. You don't want to not be able to recruit or not believe the person making these great teenagers that could come benefit your program could possibly be doing something hurtful or wrong. It's easier to look away and say it's not something I need to get involved with. No one gets to decide if someone hurt me or not. Your duty is to hear me, validate me, pass my information off to a professional, and get necessary help. Remember, if healing begins with telling, then we must make telling safe. I want y'all to understand, the first tells will be really hard. The first tells could be short. The first tells will be embarrassing, and they'll probably be told with incorrect verbiage. I couldn't use the words sexual abuse or intercourse or others. It was so embarrassing when I started to tell. So I called my abuse a relationship. I called my abuse a relationship. It was not a relationship. 15 to 16-year-old players do not have healthy sexual relationships with their volleyball coaches, ever. I was so embarrassed. I felt so much shame. I felt there was going to be retaliation. I actually felt uncomfortable with the sympathy. I wasn't sure what to make of it. I felt at times people were implying I was responsible to stop him. I didn't choose to be the victim. I feel I've been intimidated in my sharing. An example is the phrase, it's been a long time ago, get over it. Getting over it will never happen. There will always be the effects of the abuse. And I want to share with you so you can understand that, and I've listened to a lot of other victims, and I've thought things through for years, talked in therapy. And here's one of my analogies for my abuse and the after effects. I decided a long time ago, after was going to be fine. Best revenge I can have is to live a great life, fulfilled, and succeed all my goals and dreams. So when I thought about an analogy for myself, I thought, have you ever seen a three-legged dog? They live their best lives. These three-legged dogs don't miss a beat. They run around with the other dogs and they play ball and they eat and they get treats. And the only reason you know they're wounded is because you can apparently see they have 3 legs. That's what abuse victims are. We don't sit around and stay weak and cry and live in a victim state. We live our best lives. We try. I've been in therapy for 4 years. Some of my other abuse survivors of my abuser, they're not there yet. They haven't been able to go get the help, or they haven't rectified what happened to them yet. So you don't know what kind of three-legged dog you're looking at, but be aware. Even though I look strong now, and I'm healthy, and I'm living a good life, go on my Facebook. I have kids, I run a volleyball club. There's all these good things in my life, but understand, it will always affect me. It doesn't define me, I define me, but it will always affect me. The other analogy I heard from Renee Romano I really like. It's the practice of kintsugi in Japan. It means golden repair. In Japan, when some treasured pottery breaks, they don't throw it away, disguise it, or discard it. They repair the broken parts with gold highlight. Highlighting the flaws, this makes it more valuable. These repaired areas are comparable to the scars. They are part of my history. I have learned that they're not something to hide, disguise, or feel that I'm worthless. They're a part of me. The part of my highlight of gold is to tell my story, to help others. It's okay, I'm okay. I need to understand what I bring with these scars and what I can do to make that's good in this life for present and future athletes. It's not about me anymore. I'm one of the lucky ones. Yeah, I use the word lucky. I'm able to use my story for good. Told my story many, many times. I'm believed by many. There are many victims that don't get a chance. They don't feel safe enough to come forward. We have to do everything in our power to make it a safe environment for these victims, these players that we have, feel safe enough to tell you or tell someone if something's going on. I never thought I'd come back to this sport. When victims are abused in an arena, they don't want to come back. I'm one of the 6 of us that is back. I have a daughter who wanted to play, and I have so much knowledge for the game, and I love the game so much. I came back. I run my own club now, and I ran my club for my daughter and other daughters, so they could play. No closed practices, no secrets, no shame, just play the great game of volleyball. This picture here is symbolic to me. This is young me, innocent me. Notice the bruises on my knee. Apparently I didn't know how to roll or dive appropriately. I look at the bigger picture of me. That's me at Nationals. You see the teal shirts in the background. Those were people that were supporting abuse by wearing teal at Nationals the year before last. It was pretty amazing. You should have seen the arena, lots of teal. I look at it as like this is older Sarah protecting younger Sarah. I had no one back then to tell. I had no one to go to. I want to be there if anyone has a reason to reach out to me, to tell me what happened, or suspect something's happening to another little girl. I'll always be there. I'll always be open. My door is always open. It's our job to protect these kids. We need to be that trusted teacher or that trusted coach. My hope is, from giving this speech and why I came, I'm so blessed to be able to come here with the fellow speakers that I'm here, Emily and Ray and Eric. I appreciate you giving your enlightenment to Safe Sport. It's a very important program. What I want from all of you is to check your own moral compass. What does your moral compass look like? If you don't want to get involved, that's not a good thing. Make sure your eyes are out there, you're aware, stand on the side of what's right, listen to your kids that you coach, and find a way that you can help this problem. Okay, appreciate it, thank you.